Hello everyone. So I am Kehkasha Siddhavatam, Assistant Professor at Lokmanya Tilak College of Engineering. So I will be the host for today's session. A warm welcome to all of you. I thank everyone for showing the interest in this webinar. So let's begin with today's session.
To take up this topic on Python and Keras. So I hope you all are a little familiar with these topics. I hope I'm audible right now. Okay. So these topics, Python and Keras that are there. These are two major libraries that are there with us, and these libraries basically are used in machine learning, in data analytics, and other such programming tools, which today are prominent in these times. And looking at the scenario around us, it is the need of the hour that we start learning all of this. I hope you all heard what our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, said last night regarding the bailout package. Uh, Around a bailout package of around 20 lakh crore that would be given to given in the country basically. Now, what has happened is that because of the situation of the lockdown, yeah, 20 lakh crore. So, because of the situation of the lockdown all across the world, everything has come to a standstill. There is a lot of panic situation. There are a lot of jobs being lost. In fact, if you look at the numbers, in America, more than 30 million people have filed for bankruptcy and jobless claims. In India, over 12 to 15 crore people out of around, say, 48 to 50 crore. We have a big population of 130 crores, out of which around 50 crore people are employed. And out of those 50 crore right now, during this lockdown, around 12 to 15 crore have already lost their jobs because they're daily wage workers, because they have the work of, of a everyday routine. So, because of which all of these problems have happened. Now, we being in this engineering and technical sector, or we being a student, or we being a professional, what happens is there's a lot of pressure on us as to what is going to happen tomorrow, whether we lose our jobs or no, whether our future is safe or no. So the good news is that there is a lot of scope of a lot of jobs technically that are a part of this industry 4.0. I don't know if you've heard the term industry 4.0, but industry 4.0 basically implies the technologies which are in this era promoting the industrial revolution 4.0, the fourth industrial revolution. There have been three industrial revolutions already. We right now are sitting in the fourth one, and the main technologies right now promoting this industry 4.0 are comprising of the technology that we are covering in the series of webinars. That is RPA, that is machine learning, that is blockchain, that is AI, that is data analytics, data science. So these are a few of the prominent technologies in the industry 4.0 that is there. And in that series of sessions, this is our first inception session where we begin with Python in depth. Now, a lot of you all had queries regarding, will we start from the basics? What are we going to do in this? We don't know programming much. We just know some of the basics. So technically, we are not going to jump too much into programming. Is there an audio problem? Guys, you can hear me? Okay, great. So because of these uncertain conditions right now, because there are such distressful times right now, there is a lot of hope and a lot of scope in the future, but obviously primitive things are not going to be lasting. We need to focus on the next gen technologies. We need to focus on the industry 4.0, under which data science, Python, and these libraries, Keras and TensorFlow, these libraries are very powerful. Now, a lot of you had doubts regarding programming. So the good news is we won't be doing much programming as such. Like, I have certain templates with me. I'll be giving you those templates so you can directly start working with them. So technically, you don't need separate programming sessions or whatever you feel that is required. No, you don't need any of that. But obviously, you need to know certain basics. So let's start from the very, very basic. We right now are sitting in front of a computer. So we are using PC right now. And in this, what is happening is that we are, okay. So I hope you can see me. In case if there is a bandwidth problem, you can minimize the video. That should not cause the audio to distort. Anyways. So in this time, what has happened is, we are sitting in front of the machines. So the machines are doing a lot of tasks for us. We play games on them. We watch movies on them. We perform a lot of activities on these computers and these machines. How are these machines doing all of these tasks? You and I, we do a lot of tasks. How? Why? Because we know that, okay, this is how it is supposed to be done. So if this is the requirement, this is the solution. Okay, but the machines don't know. The machines are very dumb. So it is our duty. It is on us that we program the machines in such a way. We tell the machine that, boss, you are supposed to do this. You are required to do this. How do we say that to the machine? Like right now, I am talking to you all in English. मैं हिंदी में भी बात कर सकता हूँ. Okay, most of us will understand Hindi and English. If I start talking in Gujarati, in Marathi, probably some of you all would still understand. What if I start talking in a language that you do not know? I start talking in a language like, say, Japanese or Mandarin or German or Spanish. All of a sudden, like talking like this, I start doing like, you're not going to understand anything. थोड़ी देर तक, for some time you'll feel that, okay, it's funny, you might laugh over it, but then after a particular point of time it gets irritating. You technically lose the flow, the concentration. So technically these machines that are in front of you, they also need a language that they understand it. मैं आपको वो language में नहीं बोल सकता हूँ जो आपको नहीं समझ में आए. क्यों? वरना काम नहीं होगा. If I tell you to do a particular task in Japanese or in Chinese, will you be able to do the task? You can reply in the chat. Will you be able to do the task if I tell you something in Japanese or Chinese? क्या आप कर पाओगे? No, because you will not understand. You will not be able to comprehend. समझ में नहीं आएगा. But at the same time, the machine has to do certain tasks. तो machine को machine की language में समझाना पड़ेगा. And the language of the machine is called as binary byte code. It is called as machine language. 101110, all of that. But technically the problem is हम सब चीज उसमें नहीं लिख सकते. We cannot go down to that level to write everything. So there are certain libraries that are there which already have these things in place. What we have to do, खाली उसमें से वो particular function उठाना है, उसको call करना है. Like for example, if majority of us know C++ here, we can pick up certain pieces of functions like C, scanf, printf. What happens with that? Like in Java we have stdio, system.out.println. So what happens with that is the machine knows how to print करना है. If we say scanf, or in Java if we use buffer reader or some other way of reading the line scanner, the machine knows that, okay, boss, यहाँ से input आएगा, I have to read it. Okay, but the machine does not directly understand. So there is a process. What is the process basically? The process is that you do it in different sections. Like for example, We just create a new slide right now, and on this I'll just explain you what programming is, how programming functions. All right. So there is certain set of instructions here, and the machine does not understand these. Okay. So these are normal instructions. So right now, if I tell you that you have to do this, say start writing something on a piece of paper, you will start writing. You will start writing. Yeah, we are recording the session and we will be uploading the session on YouTube. So you all will be able to access the session there. But I want to do it live with the other audience also. So we'll have another session. I'll just figure out the technical glitch with Zoom because we've already done the payment and everything and the subscription is there with us. But I know there was some technicality problem. We also had a meeting earlier with more candidates, like around 250 to 80. So there also it was not done. Next session time, we'll announce it in the WhatsApp group. So you'll just need to be a little patient and everything will happen. So you can just inform your friends. Okay, we will have another session and everything will be covered. In fact, this session and the other session both will be put up on YouTube. You can check it out there also. It is totally a misfortunate thing that happened. We were not expecting this glitch to happen. I'm really sorry. Again, I'm very, very sorry about the problem that you'll have to go through. But let's continue the session and then we'll talk about that later on. So as I was telling you all, the set of instructions are there. Now these instructions are not understood by the machine. So if your machine is sitting here in the center, now this machine, whatever machine it is, it may be a PC, it may be a phone, it may be say a laptop, any kind of machine. So this machine does not understand these instructions. Okay, so the instructions are supposed to be understood by the machine, but how will it execute? Because right now it does not understand. So we technically have to translate these instructions from the normal way, like the instruction that we write, into what instruction the machine understands. So technically the instructions are written for us in high level language, which is HSL, but machine understands machine code, okay, the machine language. So we translate the HLL, Java, C, C++, Python, R, all of those are high level languages. So we have to translate it. This procedure of translation is called as compiling. It is also called as interpreting. So you have compilation also and you have interpretation also. Now the difference between the two is, in compilation, the entire piece of code is compiled together. In interpretation, everything happens line by line by line. The good news is Python is an interpreted language. We all know HTML. We all have heard about HTML. We study HTML, right? HTML is also an interpreted language, right? So interpretation is a little more time consuming than compilation. But if you look at it overall, it is way simpler. It is easier and it is very easily flowing. So that's why we've picked up Python and we would be working on Python. It uses all the basic concepts of object-oriented programming. I don't want to get into that right now. We don't have much time. So it uses all the concepts of normal programming also, like variable, constant, if else, for loops and all of that. If you want, based on how many of you are interested, we can have a separate session on pure Python programming. Right now we are on Keras and TensorFlow, which is a little higher abstracted library, wherein these basic things are not going to be touched much here. But if you want, we can have a dedicated session for that. Okay, we'll have a discussion on it on our WhatsApp group. Not a problem for that. But for the timing, let's focus on Python, Keras, and TensorFlow. So the basic of it is that there is a certain set of instructions. Those instructions are given to the machine, and the machine understands those instructions. Why? Because they are translated, interpreted. All right, I'll show you a Python interface wherein you can have simple instructions, and those simple instructions are interpreted. They are understood by the machine. Okay, this is the Spider interface of Python. If you look at Anaconda, there are many interfaces. There is Jupyter, Jupyter Notebook, there is Spider, there is PyCharm. You have other interfaces also. You have other interfaces like PyTorch is also a library that is there. Then there is Google Colab is there. The normal command prompt is also there. So there are a lot of ways in which you can have these things that are there. But focusing on this particular thing, we will be running it on Spider. So Python is so simple and so easy that you can write statements here as you used to write statements in a normal mathematical problem. Okay, so if you look at it, x is equal to 7 and y is equal to say 32 or 34 and z is nothing but y minus x. So what we have done is we've created three variables, x, y and z. X is having a particular value, y is having another value, z is having another value. And then finally when we want to see what the value is, we simply say print. And what do we want to print? We want to print z. And how do you run this code? You simply select the code and you press Control Enter. When you press Control Enter, you can see on the right side bottom on the console, this starts running, this starts executing. So it's that easy. Now I make a variable y. If you want to see how many variables you have, you can simply click on the variable explorer. These are the variables that I have currently. So there is a y here, which is integer. Okay, if I click on it, the value will pop up. Then there's the x also, which is an integer. If you still want to check, you can simply type x and you can say x will have 7, y, and you press enter and you're getting 34. And then these two statements, you just run them and you get the answer as 27. It's that easy. It's very easy. It goes with the flow. Now, the reason why we are doing Python, the reason why we are studying Python is that Python is a very prominent language when it comes to the adoption in the world. If you look at, I have pulled up certain statistics. Now, I didn't take screenshots of these because I wanted to show it live to you all. So if you look at this, this is the TOBE index, TOBE index, which is basically for us, for programmers, and this is for May 2020. So if you look at it right now in May 2020, what is the adoption of a particular language? How it was in 2019 and how it is in 2020. What are the ratings? What is the change? What are the future scope? What is the average salary? Why do we need to study Python? What is the requirement of studying Python? Itna padhai karke kya milega? So a simple reason that is studying Python is that Python is the world number 3 language. You can see that since 2001, it has grown, and now it has been growing in the last few years. If you look at it from 2017, it started going up, and you will see this is the future. Not many things would be valid in the future times. This is one of them, because this is being taken up by a lot of companies. This is being applied in a lot of firms, and this index shows it all. So it was lowest in 2003, which was number 13. In 2020, it has become number 3. Language of the year 2007, 10, and 18. These were the days, these were the times when the language was number 1. Okay, it was number 1. So you can see that the language has been performing crazily in the last few years. For one major reason why, because data science has picked up like crazy. Now, if you look at the LinkedIn survey, okay, this is the entire article. If you want, I'll share the link of this on the chat. You all can have a look at it. So this is the article basically, 15 fastest growing jobs in India. And this is not an article which is like 5 years back or something. This was in December, last December 12th, 2019. Graphically better represented here. So it's like business LinkedIn content. I am not making up any of these. It is entirely present online. So you can have a look at it. So if you look at it, 2020 emerging job reports. So there are a lot of skill sets. And in these, we, in our series of webinars in collaboration with Lokmanya Tilak College of Engineering, we would be covering up with a lot of these sessions. So number one is a blockchain developer. We have a blockchain course lined up right now also. And with Lokmanya Tilak also, we are conducting a webinar on this as well. And we also have a course lined up. So we'll look at it later on. AI specialist. So Python, if you look at it, especially Keras and TensorFlow, they are focusing on AI. If you look at this, machine learning, I'll just zoom into it a little bit. Machine learning, deep learning, see, TensorFlow, Python. Okay, these are the top skills that are required. JavaScript is fine. RPA, robotic process automation. So this we would be doing in a software by the name UiPath. Okay, this is the software that they mentioned here. It is a fabulous thing wherein your entire process of running a particular thing, everything happens online. Backend developer, behind the scenes, what happens, all of that. Rest all is all right. Full stack engineer, robotics engineer. Again, see, RPA comes in, UiPath comes in. I hope you are able to see this, guys. You are able to see what I'm showing you, right? So there's UiPath, and then again, see, Python for data science, AI. Okay, then cybersecurity, obviously, see, Python developer. So if you look at the top 15 job profiles for Indian candidates, for Indian students, Python is there multiple number of times. Whether it is ML, whether it is AI, whether it is data science, whether it is RPA, Python is there. So it is the need of the hour that you need to know about Python. You need to have an idea about Python. If you're not able to grasp these languages and these concepts, then probably in the future you have to take up another skill set, which is there. I'm not saying that this is the only thing that's going to be there. No, please. But this is one of the most prominent and promising sectors. If you look at some other skill sets that I had googled up, again, this is not by me, this is a LinkedIn content. Okay, I'll share this also with you. At the end, we'll be sharing all of these links also in a PDF format, so you can have a look at it later on. Everything will be given, so don't worry. So here they have given, see, 5 soft skills are these and 10 hard skills are these. Blockchain, cloud computing, analytical reasoning, again Python comes in, analytics, AI, Python comes in, scientific computing, again Python comes in. So you can understand Python is going to be at the core of a lot of these industries, a lot of these skill sets. Then these are some salary and basically scope of the different things that are there across the entire world. So specifically US, because US is, as we know, a hub of computer science or technology. So we generally are biased by what happens in the US. So if in the US something is happening, so probably in India also it will happen. So here you can see data scientists. Now what is a data scientist? Data scientist is nothing but okay. Yeah. So data scientists are those guys who basically do some research. They analyze the data. They figure out the science behind the data. So they have data sets are there, multiple data sets are there, and in those data sets they try figuring out what is the science behind it. Those are the data scientists. So I'll show you how these things work. We have a algorithm lined up later on. So they have a median salary of $1,30,000 a year. Job openings 4,000 plus. How much growth since last year? 56% growth since last year. So you can see that a lot of growth is happening, and a lot of things are advancing in the sector. So career advancement score 9 out of 10. Python is in this domain. It's a subcategory of that domain. Then reliability engineer, enterprise account designer, owner, solutions architect. Again, you can see Python will be in this. IT lead. Again, Python. Scrum basically is another domain wherein you develop the entire life cycle, you manage it. So Python projects can be related to this as well. Then yeah, I think machine learning engineer, see, Python. The base salary is $182,000 a year. So you can see that all over the world, these skill sets are very promising. They are very, very promising. They are required, and having this particular skill set in your resume, it makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference. Now, this was a report published by LinkedIn long back. I think more than a year back. Yeah, see, July 2018 this was published. And what was published in this report was, in the future, by 2030, there are going to be job deficits. What is meant by job deficits? It simply means that the people who are coming out for the job, they won't be as talented as required from the industry. Now, generally what happens is we study in the college, then we get placed, we go for the training. So the company, whoever is absorbing us, they train us in that particular domain, whatever domain it is, they train us. Once the training is done, then they are deploying us on the projects. That's how it works. Now what these guys are saying, that the quality of education or the fast pace in the changing IT environment is making the candidates which are coming out of the colleges not good enough for the jobs. It's not only that you are not able to you're not able to fulfill the requirements of the industry, because obviously the industry is changing at a very fast pace. You have no idea how quickly the industry changes. But if you look at it, the educational system that we have is a little slow. So if you see the syllabus that we have in our colleges, it's not that very updated. It's not the college's fault. Technically, it's not even the university's fault, because whenever we want to update any syllabus, whenever we want to upgrade any course, there is a big procedure to be followed. And by the time the procedure is done, the industry is already moved on. So for example, let's take an example, Java. We all study Java, guys. Yes or no? Please reply in the chat. We all have heard the term Java. We have studied Java sometime or the other. Yeah. So when we are studying Java, the Java that we are studying in the college, generally it is around Java 7, Java 8. The industry is using Java 13. That's the problem. So by the time Java 13 would be, and every 6 months, 8 months, Java update keeps coming on. The industry keeps on changing, and that's why these things are very slow. So okay, a lot of y'all are wanting to directly jump into Keras. Not a problem. So how do you get Keras on your system. So Keras basically, now let's understand what is TensorFlow, what is Keras. When you're talking about data analytics, when you're talking about processing huge chunks of data, what happens is that you take the data up, you store it in some variable, you modify it, and then you try analyzing, you try processing. Now that data variable, like right now when I showed you in Spider, we just took one variable. Generally, these chunks of data are huge right now. So if you look at it, the data that is there in the real world, it's getting recorded every second, right? Like right now we're recording this session, everything around you is getting recorded. Your phone, your messages, your location, whatever you do, whoever you chat with, everything is recorded. There's nothing like privacy. Guys, you all can hear me? My voice is audible? Okay. I think Kavita ma'am, I think there's some issue with some issue on your end. Probably the rest all are able to hear. Anyways, so the data is huge. That's why what has happened is these days the data is not the normal data. The data is called as big data. We all know that. Okay, the data is huge, and it's so huge that we cannot even imagine. Okay, I'm not giving the statistics here, but the data is firstly important. It's one of the most important assets today. Companies like Facebook and all those are having huge market capitalization in monetary terms because of this asset data, and it is so big that it generally drives people crazy. You can imagine in 1 second, every second, around 4,000 photos are updated on Instagram, and that's why it's called big data. Each photo approximately 5 to 8 MBs. Even if you consider 5 MBs, 4,000 pictures, 20 GB of data every second is uploaded on Instagram. It's that big, and that's why we cannot use the normal way of executing stuff. That's why we use two things. The basic, the core of that is TensorFlow. Okay, how do you install TensorFlow? This is how you install TensorFlow. I'll just share the link with you in the chat. So in case if you all have not installed it, then you can have a look at it and you can install it. And again, Keras also, I'll share the link here. So the way you will analyze all of that data, the way you will process that data is with the help of TensorFlow. Now, what is a tensor? Tensor is nothing but it is a huge chunk of data in the matrix form, in the array form. So I'll again, with the help of some annotations, I'll try showing it to you. Generally, what happens is we have certain aspects of data. So we have some data, here, some data here, some data here. Imagine that these boxes are some data. Okay. So imagine that these boxes are some data that are given, that are there with us. Okay, it can be something like 10110 whatever. It can also be something like hello world. It can also be something like some program like scanf, something semicolon. So anything of this sort. I have shared the link with everyone on the chat. I hope you all have got it. The link is there. I've shared it on the chat. So in this way, these data are scattered. Now, what TensorFlow does is instead of keeping it as a file, instead of keeping it as a variable, instead of keeping it as an object, tensor simply means a structure which is an array, which has some set of numbers. The link that did not appear to you, guys, you will not get the link. Oh, okay, wait. Because I've shared the link. Just a moment. Now you got it. Okay, great. So what TensorFlow does is it arranges your data in the form of tensors, in the form of arrays. Now these arrays can be one-dimensional arrays. They can be a two-dimensional array like a matrix. They can also be a three-dimensional array. Okay, like a 3D matrix like this, one top of another, one top of another, and the data is going to flow through these. That's why it's called as TensorFlow. Okay. You want the link on WhatsApp. Right now, I'm not going to switch on WhatsApp. So if any one of you all can just copy paste the links on WhatsApp, it would be great. You can directly copy it from here as well. Okay. So ma'am is going to send it to you. So these tensors, the data flows through these tensors. That's why it's called as TensorFlow. So the back end is the TensorFlow. Now, just tell me one more thing, and then we'll dive into the practical. I'll show you all the code and everything. One last thing. Have you heard about graphics cards? Okay. Now, these graphics cards, basically, what are they used for? They are used for processing high-end images, right? So whenever you want some high graphics, either game or some movie, HD movie you want to watch, then you require a high-end graphics card. But technically, what is the actual the work that these graphics cards do? These graphics cards basically are used for processing floating point values. So your main processor, like your Intel i3, i5, i7, whatever it may be, it processes your integer-based calculations. Not many floating point, but majorly integer-based. But majority of the floating point calculations are done by these graphics cards. As one of you all rightly said, matrix multiplication. So what TensorFlow does is it will pick up your program, it will pick up your data as per you've told it. It will put it into a tensor. It will use your graphics processor. So generally, when you would be trying to run TensorFlow code, what is going to happen is it is going to utilize your graphics card. At times the system might get slow. It might take some time because it is using your graphics cards to run it. Okay, so that's why TensorFlow. And Keras, basically what it does is TensorFlow is the backend. It is at the back. On top of it is Keras. If I'll show you the code, I will be showing you two pieces of code in which I will be predicting some values, and you would understand how TensorFlow makes things very complicated. It makes life miserable. It is using graphics cards though. That's a good part. It's trying to make things happen faster, but it makes life miserable. So Keras, what it does, it runs on top of TensorFlow. Like for example, right now when I run any of these IDEs, now this is my Anaconda environment. Okay, this is Jupyter Lab, Qt Console, Spider, and then these are the R and the Orange other IDEs that are there. What these do is they make my life easy. Right now, me sitting and typing on the terminal Python program becomes a little difficult. I have to remember everything. I need to know every comment. I need to know every syntax. But here in these environments that are there, a lot of things are already inbuilt. I don't need to break my head. So that's why these make my life easier. And that's why we would be using one of such environment, which is your Spider. Okay, I'll be using Python Spider. This is the environment I will be using. And I will be displaying to you how when we are running a piece of code in Python, like this is a normal piece of code that we ran. Okay, these are adding two numbers. But when we want to do something similar in TensorFlow, things get a little complicated. Okay, I'll show you the code for adding two numbers in TensorFlow. So technically, what is happening here is we are importing this library TensorFlow. Okay, I hope it's visible. Should I increase the size of it? Wait, I will. Okay, so now I think it should be easily visible to you all, guys. Visible? Okay, great. So in this, what is happening? We are importing TensorFlow. Now, this program that we have, this code runs on TensorFlow version 1. Okay, so this is the older version. So we'll stick to that for the time being, just for the understanding of it. And then later on, if you want, we'll migrate to TensorFlow 2.0. So we are importing TensorFlow. Now this is a basic syntax in Python. We get the TensorFlow version 1, TensorFlow compatibility version 1 as TF. So in the future references, whenever I want to call this library, when I want to execute something from this library, I'll be using TF. And what I've done here is I have disabled the version 2 behavior. I have told TensorFlow that you will not behave like version 2, because in version 2, they have made a lot of changes in this. We'll discuss it later on. But what we want here is we just want to understand how to make two variables and how to add them up. So here, to create a variable, you see in a normal Python code, what you do is you simply write x is equal to the variable. Piece of cake, no problem. So you just write x equal to 7, y equal to 34, or z equal to blah blah blah, x, y, z, whatever. In TensorFlow, you can't create a variable like that. What you have to do, you have to write it like this. And technically, this is not even a variable, this is a constant that we are creating. So first, we are creating a constant, let's assume it as a variable, which holds the value 6. And the name is constant underscore a. Then we are creating b, again holds value 3. We are creating c, holds value 10, d holds value 5. So in this manner, you create variables. Now, if you look in the normal Python, how do you perform operations like this? You just put the operator, whatever, add, subtract, multiply, minus, whatever it may be. You just put the operator in between the operands, whatever operands are there, x and y. You just put it in the middle, and this will work. But when you look at TensorFlow, it does not happen that way. There's a big mathematical way to write it. What? You call the library. In the library, there's a function multiply. In that multiply function, you pass the variables you want to multiply. That's how you execute this. Second thing. Okay. So second thing that you do, again, I want to divide the two numbers. I'll simply say tf.div. So divide the two numbers. Then I want to add these two operations. Then I'll simply say add. And what do I want to add? I want to add the numbers that I multiplied and I divided. Okay. What is the name of this operation? Say addition. And then even after this, this much, say we'll execute it line by line so that you'll know what is happening. So I execute this. I create these constants. I hope you know how to execute it. It's just command enter and it'll execute. You can see on the console it's executing. And then I just say mul equal to this. Okay. So it got executed. Now if I try printing mul, see what is it giving to me? The output that it gives to me is that this mul that you've just tried printing. What is it? It is a tensor, meaning that list of variables, it is a tensor. What is the shape of the tensor? It is just one dimensional, that's why they have kept the shape empty. And what is the type of the tensor? The type is integer, 32. So 32 is basically the size of it, and int is basically the integer. Here. So int 32 is the type of this tensor mul. It's not yet giving us the answer. How do you get the answer? If you want to get the actual output, you have to create a session. And in the session, you have to pass this value run. Okay, so you create a session here. I created a session and then I pass value. Suppose I want to print the answer mul. So I'll simply say mul here and I will say run, and that's how I get the answer 18. Okay, if I want to see the answer for divide, I say div and I just run it, and that's the answer div. If I want the final answer, which is the addition of the two, so I just pass the variable addn and I run it. This is how I get the answer. So technically, TensorFlow is an excellent and efficient tool, very efficient, but it makes life a little complicated. Why? Because you tend to then focus on all of these complexities. You tend to move away from the actual thing. See, this is another way of running the TensorFlow libraries. You can create a session directly, and this session is called as an interactive session. Now, this session was not interactive because we had to write a lot of code. We had to do a lot of things here. But if you look at this, this is a more of an interactive session. So in this interactive session, what happens is you create a session and you simply evaluate the expression. So I'll just run this also in front of you. So it's giving us a warning. That's fine. So as interactive session is already active, so that's fine. And then I just say eval. So it's giving me the answer. Okay, I can change the values here. Say I say 6. I change the value here, and I simply say eval. It is still taking the older value, and it's now giving us the new answer. So in this manner, if I simply say C here, so it will just give me the details of that tensor. It will say that, okay, it is a tensor of the type add, shape is again one dimensional, and the data type is int32. Okay, another thing is, if you want to do matrix multiplication here, how do you do it? This is another way of using the same library, wherein you create a session like this. Now in this, you will notice that we have not deactivated. Okay, so let's say this. So this has been imported. Let's understand the version. So the current version is 2.0. So in this specifically, we are running with the original 2.0 behavior. So if you look here, what did we do? We deactivated the 2.0 behavior, the version 2. We wanted to run some code in the version 1.0. So that's why we deactivated it. But in this, we are continuing with the version 2.0. And if you look at the version 2.0, what technically is happening is here you have to create a session, and in the session you have to create a graph. Now, what is a graph? I don't know if you all have had the subject by the name Theory of Computer Science. Have you all had that? TCS? It is called by different names in different streams, but more or less it has to deal with how a compiler is made. It has to deal with a lot of things like Moore machine, Mealy machine. Okay. So you would be having it in the future probably, or maybe you've already studied that, but don't get scared of it, because when I was in engineering, NFA, DFA, all of that, automators and all those things. So when I was in engineering, I was a little scared of that subject because समझ में नहीं आता था, सब circuit process आता था, it felt really difficult. कि क्या करूँगा, how I never used to understand. But technically it's very easy, because it's total logic. It is simply a way how the machine interprets stuff. So it's totally logical. You don't need to get scared of it. And secondly, what that emphasizes on. Exactly. Yeah, मेरा भी वही same हालत था, मुझे भी नहीं समझा था TCS. But gradually, when I studied it, then I finally understood it that it's very simple, and all it does is it takes some inputs based on some rules, it processes and provides with you some output. So that processing generally happens in the form of a graph. Okay, so there are two inputs probably, and then there is say a decision parameter or some condition in the middle. And what you do is you take inputs from these graphs and you give an output. That's how it functions. That's technically how it functions. You take inputs and you give an output. So it's that easy. Now this entire thing is called as a graph. This is called as a graph. Now what exactly does this graph do and why are we talking about it here is TensorFlow executes things in the form of these graphs. It takes certain inputs, it writes certain outputs, and it executes them in form of that. Okay, so what we are doing here is, I'll just clear this out just a moment. So what we are doing here, this is basically a graph. You're building a graph. And what technically is happening in this graph, you are creating two matrices like this, and you are multiplying them. Okay, so when I say you're creating two matrices, how does it look like? It's simply 1, 2, and uske niche 3 and 4. And then for the next, it is 1, 1, and uske niche 0 and 1. So that's how these matrices are. And simple matrix multiplication is happening. So when I run this, let's try running this. So you can see the final answer is 1, 3, 3, 7. We've all done matrix multiplications in maths, 11, 12, M1, M2, M3, M4. Kahin na kahin kiya hoga, right? So we know how matrix multiply. So it's like one row and the other column. So if this is the matrix, don't misinterpret that this is a matrix. Huh? This is not a matrix. This entire thing, this is one matrix and this is one matrix. So technically, you will multiply 1, 0 with 1 and 0. Sorry, 1 and 2 with 1 and 0. So it would be 1 into 1 plus 2 into 0. So the answer is 1. So that's why there's 1 here in the output. And the next one would be 1 into 1 plus 2 into 1. So that is 3. So 3 in the output and so on. So these complicated processes done easily. So that's why TensorFlow and Theano, two libraries are there, Theano. So two libraries are there, one is TensorFlow, one is Theano. Both of these libraries make our life easy. And what is Keras doing on top of it? Keras is simply facilitating these libraries very easily. Now I'll finally come to the regression part of it, the prediction part of it. So if you look at it, okay, I pressed the wrong button. So sorry about it. So if you look at it, this is a simple linear regression. What is a regression? Regression simply means you are trying to gauge, you are trying to figure out the future. You're trying to find out the future values. So it can be your academics, your marks. It can be some stock market predictions. It can be the price of some particular house or something. It can be the COVID-19 cases across the country, across the world. It can be the jobless claims all across. So you can decide what you want to predict and you can predict it. All right. So that's what linear regression does. It helps in predictions. So how does it work? It simply works in a fashion wherein you have certain data points and those data points are then tried to be arranged online. Let's just show it to you using some white space. Let me just. Okay, so this white space is here. So I'll just show you what technically behind the scenes is happening when it comes to regression. So technically there are multiple points. Okay, say this is one point, this is another point, this is another point, this is another point, this is another point, another point. Okay, multiple points. Okay, just ignore the size of those points. Just imagine that all the points are of the same size. And if you look at it, suppose these are the two axes that we have. Okay, this is one axis and say this is the other axis. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to figure out a way in which these points can be put up on a linear scale. Now the name of the regression is linear regression. Okay, it's also called as OLS, wherein we can use the least square method to get the distance which is the least from a particular line. So if you look at it, you can draw a particular line. I'll change the color of this line. This is the line which is the closest to majority of the points. So if you look at the points here, and if you want to look at the distance between these points, yellow won't be visible. So let's just take black. So if you look at the distance between these points, then what happens is that this is the distance between the line and the point, distance between the line and the point, distance, the distance. So we have to have a line which has the minimum distance. That's what is the purpose of linear regression. So this regressor, basically what it does, it tries finding this red line which has the minimum distance between these points, and that's how the future predictions would happen. So that you can simply say that, okay, I want to know the value of this particular point here in the future in corresponding to this line on the y-axis. So probably if you look at it, it would be somewhere here approximately. Okay, if you look at the line. So if you have one value, you would be able to guess the other value. So technically what it does is it is giving you an idea about the different future probabilities, that what can be the probabilities in the future for these lines that are there, for these numbers that are coming. So it helps in future prediction. So coming back to linear regression, the reason I'm showing you this piece of code right now is my Slido just crashed. Just a moment. So the reason I was showing you that entire piece of code was because in normal programming, things are so easy. Okay, like see, this is the normal programming for the okay. So we have linear regression here. I'll just go to regression, simple linear regression, and yeah. So this is the code for a simple linear regressor, wherein you have all the code in one particular place. You can see that we are importing certain libraries here. We'll run it. We are getting the data set here. Now, what is the data set? Data set is basically of the salaries of certain individuals. So if you look at the X part, these are the different levels there. I hope you all can see. Can you see the window that has just popped up? I think you won't be able to see it. Now I think it should be visible. Okay, so these are basically the different levels that are there, and these are the salaries for those levels. So based on the levels, these salaries are there. Okay, so what we would be trying to do is we will try and run this linear regressor, and we will try to predict that probably what can be the salary of a particular person, of a particular employee at a particular stage. So when we do this, we need to do certain data pre-processing activities, and what exactly they are, we will be covering in the ML section when we would be using 2-3 algorithms to predict the future values. It's giving an error. sklearn cross validation. Okay, yeah, this has been deprecated. Just give me a moment. Okay, so So technically, the cross validation parameter that was there, it has been deprecated. So we'll just ignore that for the time being, and we just continue with the execution. So if you look at it, this is what your Python looks like. Okay, when you're executing the machine language code, share it with you. So you are trying to figure out what linear regression does. Is you I'll do another algorithm with you all. This will also give an error. Say regression. Now let's take up this another type of regression algorithm. So here again the similar things are there. If you look at the variables here, again x is the different levels that are there and y is the salary. So again what we are doing is we are trying to find out that path. Okay, we're trying to find out that path, and then we are trying to run this algorithm which is called as random forest. What it is, how it functions, we will not get too much into it. And we are trying to predict the salary for a person with an experience of 6.5 years. Okay, so that's what we are trying to do here. So I'll just run it. We'll just run it like this. So it has done, and now we will try seeing the salary here. So if you see, I'll just say y underscore spread. So the salary that it has gauged, it is 1,58,300. So technically, if you see, that's how simple these models are. Similarly, in linear regression also, things are very easy. But if you try running linear regression with TensorFlow directly, it will give you a lot of issues. Okay, I'll just show you how the code looks like there. File Explorer. I'll share the codes also with you. Don't worry about it, please. Here. So in TensorFlow, the linear regression looks like this. It's this complicated. Because we are using tensors, because the library is made such that it has to utilize your graphical processors, it has to utilize your graphics cards, and it has to build up maximum efficiency. That is the reason why TensorFlow is required to have all of these commands. So what is the solution? The solution is using Keras. Keras is a library on top of TensorFlow wherein you don't have to do all of this. You can directly run it. I will show you one such code of something called as an artificial neural network. Okay. So basically, this is the data set that we would be using in the artificial neural network, and this is running on top of TensorFlow. So you can see here Keras is there, and Keras will be running on top of TensorFlow. And you can see the other part, like this part is all data pre-processing. Okay, that has nothing to do with TensorFlow, but this part is making the use of TensorFlow so simple and so easy that anyone and everyone can use it, and you can use it daily for predicting a lot of things. Like you can just take up the data at your house, how much groceries, how much cereal, and all those things are utilizing, and you can simply run this code and you can get a prediction value for the future, say for the next month, next 2 months. So that's how powerful these tools are. We all are using different applications like Netflix, like YouTube, like TikTok, like Amazon. They give us future predictions. How do they do that? This is how they do that. They use these strategies, these techniques. We will be covering these techniques later on in the other session on machine learning specifically. But today, because it was focused on TensorFlow and Python and Keras, I just wanted to show you how Keras helps in model efficient manner as compared to TensorFlow. If you have to write the original code in TensorFlow, you will go mad. You will absolutely go crazy. So I'll just start executing this piece of code. So we are importing the data set right now. We've got the data set with us. You can check out in the variables. You have X, which is an object of 10,000 data. You have Y, which is again the outcome of 10,000 values. Now in Python, there is a Python and R both can be used for data science or machine learning algorithms. But there's a basic difference, that is in Python, you have to execute after separating the two variables, the dependent and the independent. So if you want to predict something, you have to separate it out. Okay, so that's why your X and Y is separated. And then what we are doing is we are scaling it. We are bringing it down to the level the model understands. And then we are splitting it into two parts, that is train and test. Then we are simply again feature scaling. And finally, this is the TensorFlow part of it. So in this, what we are doing is, as I've already told you, TensorFlow uses graphs. It uses data in the form of tensors, in the form of matrices. So similarly, this data of 8,000 that we are sharing, it is being used in the form of tensors, and that data is then fed into this particular graph. So what is this graph? This graph is being created, which is sequential in nature, which has sequential layers, one after the other. And what that does is, it helps you to restructure your layer and to get a better output. So this is the first layer that you are adding to this sequential structure. This is the input layer. It has 6 dimensions. Why? Because our input has 6 dimensions. The initialization is uniform. We uniformly initialize them. And then there is something called as activation. Now these neural nets are closely related to the neural nets in our brain. Okay, so these are the neural nets in our brain. They're very closely connected. Now each neuron, each point in the graph, I just showed you 2 points in that graph. Each point in that graph, they have certain activation functions. So when these two inputs meet, whether to pass it on ahead or not to pass it on ahead, that means activation. If you're able to pass it on, it is activated. If you're not able to pass it on, it is not activated. So what kind of an activation function do you require? ReLU simply means rectilinear function. And then how many dimensions are there? Okay, so in the first layer, the input is being taken parameters. Okay, this was the data set. So if you look at this data set, see how many columns are there? Row number, customer ID, surname, blah 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 blah. Total, I think 14 are there. Out of this, we are taking 11. Okay, so we are taking 11 as inputs here, and we are going to process those 11, and we convert those 11 into 6, and then finally we have one output. So what we are doing is in multiple layers. Here we have 3 layers. Okay, this is the first layer, which is the input layer. This is the second, which is the hidden layer, and this finally is the output layer. And then Okay, guys, you all can see me? All okay? You all can hear me? You all can see me, right? So sorry, my Zoom shut down all of a sudden. Okay, okay, great. So I was just talking to you all about the number of epochs. I was talking to you all about the batch size. So out of those 10,000 inputs that are there, so what this machine is going to do, it is going to run, and try to figure out a way to map the inputs to the outputs. So what is happening? It will run. It will figure out a way how the input and output are connected. That's how it will do it. Now, in the presentation earlier, I was trying to show something to you all, but a few of you all wanted to directly go to hands-on. Earlier, in traditional programming, how things used to work, they used to work in the diagram, the first diagram, traditional programming. You have some data, you have some program, you're getting some output. Take any game that you play, for instance. We play games like PUBG, Call of Duty. We play games like Candy Crush. We use applications like Instagram, Facebook. Everything is pre-decided. Everything is pre-decided. On the screen, wherever you will touch, whatever you will do, based on that, your game is going to give you a response. Whatever you do, you'll get a response. Whatever you do, you'll get a response out of it. Clear? But today, things have changed. Machine learning simply means the machine will automatically write the program. The machine will automatically try and figure out the program. That line that we drew, that linear regressor line, that is basically a mapping. That is basically a program of what? Of some input, of some data related to some output. So whatever input you give, that output you will get. And that's what is machine learning. So even in this program that we have right now in Spider, this program, when we execute, what is going to happen is the program itself is going to run and it is going to get a mapping between input and output. It will try figuring out what is the connection between the input and the output, and that mapping, the relationship in between, will help you to predict the future value. That's what machine learning, that's what AI is about. So when I try executing this, you will see that it will take some time because it has to process huge chunks of data. Let's try importing Keras first. It will show you something here at the bottom, which I want you to see very carefully. See. So here at the bottom, it has imported Keras, and what does it say? That you are using a TensorFlow backend. Okay, so you are using a TensorFlow backend. So front end is Keras, but underneath there is TensorFlow. Instead of TensorFlow, you can also use Theano, Theano. That is also a very powerful library, but generally TensorFlow is like an industry standard. Most of the industries, they prefer TensorFlow, so that's why we are talking about TensorFlow right now. So I'll just create this classifier now. So this classifier is created, all the layers have been added, and now we will try getting the mapping. We will try getting the relationship, and you will see that it is not just just click and execute kind of a process. It is like your brain. It takes time. Okay, and it is going to run 100 times, and every time it runs, you can see the accuracy will increase. The accuracy will keep going up. See, you and I, we have brains. We are intelligent. How many of you agree that we are intelligent? Please say yes. Okay, I personally think everyone is intelligent. Why? Because we have developed this intelligence since childhood. Since we were kids, we have grown, we have learned, we have had a lot of experiences. Based on what? We have become intelligent. That's what makes us intelligent, right? Similarly, the computer does not have that much time. You and I, we know no one is dumb. Everyone is intelligent. The field may be different. You might be intelligent in something, you might be less intelligent in something else, but we are all intelligent beings. So what has happened is we have had these past experiences, 10, 15, 20 years of experiences that we have had. That's why we are intelligent. Does the computer have that much time? No. Does the machine have that much time? No. So what? So instead of letting the machine live for 10, 20, 15 years, we give the machine data of 10, 20, 15 years. And that's how the machine actually understands or generates or simply replicates intelligence. Machine can never be intelligent. The machines that we use, they can never be intelligent, but they replicate. They just mimic the intelligence. And this is how they do it. What kind of data to this TensorFlow? Now, right now we've just given some text data. You can give any kind of data. Okay, this is a very prominent field, and I personally love deep learning because it is so precise and so accurate. Right now, you can see the accuracy is what, around 84% here. You can see 84.24. Okay, the accuracy is 0.84. That means it's 84% accurate. So if this machine is going to tell you something, it will tell you that whatever it says has a chance or a probability of 84% being precise, being accurate. All right, and then how to actually check it. So generally there are two things. Like even in our session, what we are going to do is we are going to teach you certain things, and after that we are going to evaluate by giving you some tasks. Okay, I wanted to give you some tasks today also, but now since the majority of the participants are not able to join, a lot of people are not here. So what we'll do is we will give you the task on WhatsApp. So since you all have attended the session here, we will be passing on a task on WhatsApp, and the people who are able to finish it in time, then those guys would be awarded vouchers. They would be given cash prizes basically. So anyways, so the accuracy of a particular model is basically understood when you try testing it. So you train it for some time. So we have used, so technically we had 10,000 values. Out of those 10,000 values, we have trained 8,000 of them. And the 20%, that is 2,000, we have used for testing. And in that, what did we find? We found out of those 2,000 values, around 1,500 and 163 values, they are accurate. And around 300 values are incorrect. So 1,700 values on 2,000. So if you just do 1,700 divided by 2,000, around 85% accuracy of the model. All right, so that's the power of machine learning techniques. That's the power of Python. That in this duration, if I increase the epochs, if I increase the batch size, or if I add a few hidden layers, this 85% can be pushed up to 90-95%. Okay, but it will take a lot of processing power. It will take a lot of time. So we are not getting into that. But all we are trying to do here is we are trying to pick up the basic of it. We are trying to take the basic of it, and we are trying to gauge how much accuracy we can squeeze out of it. We are allocating data to the development set. So if you look at it, 80% of it is to the training set, which is the development set, and the rest 20% we are giving it to the test set. right? So technically, this was a small overview of what TensorFlow is, what Keras is, how powerful these two things are, where all they are used, what is the power of it. I had a few things I wanted to show you all on the slides. I'll quickly go through there, and then I'll just conclude with the session. So technically, we have understood this, and Python, if you look at it, it is one of the top skills. I've already shown you why Python is important. So if you really want to get into the field of data science, if you want to be secure, if you want to have an interest, basically have an inclination of Python, then you should definitely go ahead with this, because it is one of the top skill sets of the industry, which companies use or hire Python programmers. All of them, majorly all of them. No matter what sector you want to get into, Python is already there. What if you don't want to get into a sector? What if you're in a third year? What if you don't want to do a full-time job? You can do freelancing. In freelancing, these are some people that I have screenshotted. There are many. I've just taken like 4 profiles for you all with different hourly wages. 30 hours, and these are all Indian fellows. They are in India. They're working from India. Okay, Android machine learning AI. So obviously he knows Python. Second one is again machine learning engineer. Obviously he knows Python. You can see the charges that they are levying on their employers. $30 an hour, $55 an hour. $50 an hour is approximately around $4,000 an hour. Right, $100 is 7.5, so $50 around $3,800 an hour. These are a few other profiles, and these guys have earned money. They're not just some profile that I've just picked up, which have just put up any rate, hourly rate that they have said. These guys have earned. If you look at in India, this is the survey of India that gives you a brief idea about what was the scenario like in 2018. 2019 surveys are on the way; they're going to come out. So once they're out, we'll be able to know. But if you look at it, AI engineer, artificial intelligence engineer, and data scientist, both of them work in Python using Keras, using TensorFlow, using other such libraries to the code, and they have premium pay packages. If you want to stay in the country, if you want to go abroad, again, there are premium pay packages ranging from $1.5 lakh per year to around a little less than 125, $130, $1,30,000 a year. So you can see, and all of this data is available online. If you simply go to a website by the name Upwork, I have it open here. I'll share it with you. This is the website Upwork. This has a lot of job opportunities in Python. So if you want to search for jobs, say in Python, say Python Keras. So you just type in here, and it will search it, and it will display whatever opportunities are there, whatever jobs are there. My net is a little slow, so probably it's taking time, but it will load up. And it also has a skill index. So top 20 fastest growing skills of 2019 into this quarter 2. So you can see PyTorch, Keras. Okay, all of these things, they are in Python. So you can imagine how powerful this library is. See, deep learning expert. So these are the jobs that people are ready to pay for. Okay, and it's like $100, 30 hours per week, and per hourly you'll get paid for something. So all you have to do is you have to get experience. See, your resume definitely matters. What you write in your resume definitely matters, but more than your resume, more than your degree, more than what certificates you have, what matters is practical knowledge, hands-on experience. Right? If you do not have hands-on experience, then no one is going to hire you. But if you have hands-on experience, I don't know if you all are there on LinkedIn, but guys, if you all are there on LinkedIn, Programming Fiesta and my profile, both of them are there on LinkedIn. Go there, check it out. A lot of our students have put up their projects on LinkedIn. Those are the kind of projects that you need to start working on. The traditional college projects that would be going on definitely, but you need to start doing something other than that as well. Because if you don't do that, you will be left behind. So with this, I'll not take much of your time. I'll conclude with this. And all I would say here is that please, guys, in these times, try upgrading your skill set, because that is the only way that we will and move forward. So you have to figure out your own skill set, your own interest. If you have any queries, guys, okay, yeah, if anyone wants to ask something right now, please go ahead in the chat. You can just ask me. And I really apologize for all the trouble that was caused in the beginning of this session. I will make sure that nothing of that happens again. A lot of the students were talking things in the WhatsApp group, but I guess that's the student mentality. But that's fine. Even I was a student. We also have gone through all that. But guys, we are actually trying to figure out a lot of things here. And what we would be doing it. Okay, so there are some questions here. Okay, so someone asked for attendance. What we will do is we'll circulate a feedback form. So whoever has attended the session, we have it in the logs with us, and you all can just give your feedback, and we'll mark your attendance there. So don't worry about it. How can I start to learn Python? Okay, Mr. Paresh asks. There are a lot of online courses. We also have our course. It's a small course of 12 hours, a very nominal fee. It's not video recorded. They are not lectures like Udemy or Coursera. It will be a live session like this, and it will be more interactive because we have smaller batch sizes. Right now the batch size is huge, so the interaction is not much. I tried interacting as much as I could, but it's not much. I know, but there we would have small batch size of 15 to 20 students, and that would be completely hands-on from scratch. I myself hate theory. Okay, I don't like theory at all. So that would be one of the places if you want, you can start. The courses would be uploaded on our social media, so guys, please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, so you can get in touch with us there, and we'll also share it on the WhatsApp group as well. Can you please suggest a freelance website? See, Upwork is one of the best websites. I till now, I found everything that I want there, so you all can just check it out there. All right, you can start with that. Will you get certificates? Definitely, you'll be getting a certificate, and once we sort some technical issues out, you would be getting a certificate of participation. So don't worry, no worry. What are the basic system requirements for ML and data science? See, there is no basic system requirement as such, but you can simply download a few things, like you can have a Spider Python installed in your system. There will be one session similar in R scripting. So there I'll be explaining how the same thing is done in R language, because these days what has happened, a lot of industries are starting to venture out in R. They don't like Python much, so they're moving towards R. So it should be decent enough to handle these systems. Then okay, one of the suggestion is here, try Fiverr for freelancing. You can check that out. I'm not checking out personally, but one of your friends is suggesting. Can we get the recording of the video of the sessions? Definitely, we will be uploading the entire recording on YouTube, so you all can check it out there. We would love it if you all can even subscribe and share the video with other of your friends. When and where will be recording? Again, I told you it will be on YouTube, and it will take a day or two. Please bear with us. We are a small team. We are working our asses off because we have a lot of things lined up back to back. So that's why. There's a question about MySQL. I think one of your Jimmy Patel has a question. I'll just unmute you. You can just ask it. Yeah, Jimmy, go ahead. Yeah, Jimmy. Okay, so Jimmy muted herself. Okay, anyone else who actually wants to ask it over voice, just raise your hand and I'll unmute you. Not a problem. Okay, where we get the code and the data sets. The data set and the code that I have used here, we will mail it to you. Okay. In fact, in the YouTube videos, we'll provide the link at the bottom of the description, so you can download it from there also. And in general, if you want some data sets, then you can go to Kaggle, Kaggle. It's a huge website. You can check it out. So as you told, nowadays we need practical knowledge, and they are lacking in that. Yeah. So technically, hands-on is very much required because in every industry, everyone requires hands-on. And obviously, an industry will take you faster if you have the knowledge rather than just having theory. So in neural networks, it's necessary to learn neural networks without Keras TensorFlow. I mean, do you need to understand Keras? No. You don't need to understand too much in depth. But obviously, because you're using that, you need to know certain aspects of it. Like you need to know how you will use it, but it is not necessary that you need to know each and everything about it. Like for example, linear regression in TensorFlow, you need not know all of that, not at all. But you need to know what is sequential, you need to know what is dense, you need to know what is a neural network, you need to know when to add what layer, you need to know the different activation functions, and that everything. Right now we have a very small time duration, so we can't cover everything. So we have a small course coming up in a coming week, and we will be updating that to you on your mail and on the social media platforms that we are connected to. So if you all are interested, you can join that, and need not join my course, you can join it anywhere. But just make sure whatever you join, everything is supposed to be hands-on. Make sure everything is hands-on, because if it's not hands-on, theory, as I've said, not that interesting. Application needs for blockchain. So blockchain, we would be sending you the list of applications that you need. I'll just mention it to you right now if you all are interested. The applications that you would be requiring for blockchain, there is an application by the name Ganache, Ganache. You would be requiring something called as Node.js, Node.js, which has the NPM package manager. You would be requiring an editor. I think most of us would have text editors, right, like Notepad, but I personally use the text editor called as Atom because it has some inbuilt frameworks. So majorly we require these three. And for your Chrome extension in the Google Chrome, you would also require Google Chrome, by the way. If you don't have it, you need to install it. In Google Chrome, you would require an extension by the name MetaMask. So in the blockchain, what we would be doing is I would be demonstrating you step by step development of an application on the blockchain using the language Solidity. Okay, so whoever is interested in it, please be there. We would be going into that. Okay, Avinash has a question. Yeah, Avinash. Avinash. Avinash, please go ahead with the question. Okay, I think Avinash is busy. Anyways, so the next question is, can internship help to get practical knowledge? Definitely, internships can definitely help you get practical knowledge a lot. But again, it should be a practical-oriented internship, not a theoretical one. What we should learn after Python for data science? I think you should first learn the basic machine learning strategies that are there, machine learning techniques that are there. Few of which we would be covering in our webinar, and the others we also have a lot of courses that are coming up. You can join that also. But you can learn it on any platform. A lot of them are available on YouTube. But as I said, we would be doing live when we do it. It's not going to be recorded lectures. But yeah, you can learn it anywhere. It's not hard and fast that I am the best and you have to learn from me. You can learn it from wherever you feel like is right. The price is right. The way of teaching is right. It's totally on you, and you should try it out. Right. Now, the question will be getting, yeah, you will be getting certificates. Don't worry about it. We will be emailing them to you. Obviously, we can't give them physically right now because of the lockdown situation, but we will be emailing it to you. So, can you give some insights on business analytics? See, business analytics is another domain of data science. So, data science is like a big umbrella. Under that, there is Python, R, data analytics, data visualization, business analytics. So, business analytics is nothing complicated. It is simply that for growing a business, for making a business boom large scale, what is supposed to be done? That is what business analytics is. So, you can analyze, like for example, if it's a grocery store, you can take up the data, you can run some analytics, you can get visualizations on it, and that's how you can come to know what that is basically, how that can improve your business. So, I think that's it. Any other questions, guys? Okay, so I think more or less all the questions are done. What skills do we require for business analytics? Again, same, machine learning, R, Python, those are the skill sets that you require. So I'd like to invite Kakisha ma'am to take over now.
Yeah, thank you, Pranav. So I definitely think that audience have got a holistic understanding of Keras and TensorFlow. It was a very nice experience to understand all the integrities of implementing ML through TensorFlow and Keras. So we highly appreciate, sir, your efforts to make this session live and interesting, even though we had such a initial glitches because of Zoom. I hope everyone have found it a good start, and we'll be waiting for such further exciting sessions, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much, guys. I again apologize for the technical glitches. We'll make sure everything is rectified. Doesn't happen ever again. And yeah, the today's task, I think we'll keep it aside for the time being. We'll give it in the WhatsApp group once all of the people have gone through the session once. Okay. So thank you again, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll see you all again. Take care. Bye bye.